This morning hails from a great city, a great city, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. He is an immigrant, having made his way to Canada from Surrey, England at the tender age of 2. Bruce Etherington has been a round table member since 1969 and is a top-of-the-table qualifier as well. In his many years with the round table, he has been active as a speaker, an author, and as an all-round loyalist volunteer. Now, despite all the time he spends on production and with his round table activities, Bruce has found time to be active in the Toronto Life Underwriters Association and is a past president of that fine organization. Outside the business, his most challenging and proudest achievement is the annual Sports Celebrities Breakfast he hosts to aid the Ontario Special Olympics, an organization of which he is a board member. Through Bruce's tireless efforts, Bruce received a special provincial citation for his contribution to amateur sports. Bruce truly believes if you have grown because of someone else, help someone grow because of you. He is about to do this again right now. Bruce Etherington.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The late Walt Disney, when asked his philosophy of life, replied, "Think. Think about who you are and what you want to be. Believe. Believe in yourself, for you are the best you that God could create. Dream. Dream about the person whom you think and believe you can become, and when you dream big dreams. And then dare. Dare to do it, for ideas are a dime a dozen, but the person who puts them into practice can be worth millions. Think, believe, dream, dare. The 4 levels of competence. Unconscious incompetence. When we first entered the life insurance business, we didn't know what it was that we didn't know. We didn't know how to prospect, complete a fact-finding questionnaire, or close a sale. We were unconsciously incompetent. And so each of us, in our own way, strive to reach the 2nd level of competence, which is conscious incompetence. We recognize that in order to survive in the life insurance business, we must find prospects, fix appointments, build trust, obtain facts, and close sales. But how? By sticking to the basics of our business, the blocking and the tackling, the essence of what it is that we do that will bring cash in the door of our business. We realized very quickly that by finding the prospects, completing the facts, and consistently asking for the order, that we would gradually make sales and slowly elevate ourselves to the 3rd level of competence, that of conscious competence. The difference. The difference between a Duffer and Jack Nicklaus, between an average professional tennis player and Martina Navratilova, between a journeyman right fielder and Dave Winfield, between most NHL hockey players and Wayne Gretzky, is the difference between those who have arrived at the 3rd level of competence and that rarefied stratosphere, unconscious incompetence. Unconscious competence, the 4th level. This world of unconscious competence is the world of the Feldmans, the Nathans, the Sullivans, the Todds. For the professional at this level realizes what he or she must do by reflex, a condition honed from thousands of hours of hard work, dedication, and commitment. Is your goal, ladies and gentlemen, the 4th level of competence, unconscious competence? Will your commitment to the life insurance industry allow you to become unconsciously competent? Whether you can or whether you can't, it is up to you and your attitude. For if you think you can't, you won't. But if you think you can, you will. Preparation. Preparation is much more important than presentation. Let me share with you the story of the big game hunter who had been hunting the mighty Bengal tiger for 3 weeks without success. After a 12-hour day in the jungle, he was returning to his camp when he came around a bend in the trail, and there, 3 feet in front of him, was a 1,500-pound Bengal tiger which hadn't eaten in 3 weeks. Quickly dropping to one knee, the hunter slung his rifle over his shoulder, took aim, and fired. Well, at the same instant, the tiger leapt. The shot went low, the tiger went high. Both missed their targets. Early the next morning, the hunter arose with the dawn and went into a little clearing and shot at fleas, flies, butterflies, gnats, anything that moved, from any position, on one knee, on two knees, up, down, in between, practicing his short-range shots. Pausing for a moment, he heard in the distance a thumping, crashing, and banging. Cautiously crawling through the underbrush, he spied there in a little clearing in the middle of the jungle the mighty Bengal tiger practicing his short leaps. Ladies and gentlemen, success by the inch is a cinch, but by the yard is very, very hard. Are we all practicing our short leaps to the 4th level of competence? Appointment calendars. How difficult is it for us to see 15 people a week? Well, let's examine you, your goals, and your markets. Here we have a typical week, Monday through Friday. Let's start off with 5 breakfast appointments at 7 or 7:30, followed by 5 luncheons at 12, followed by 5 late afternoon appointments for tea at 4 or 4:30. 15 appointments in that week without one evening house call. Now, let's suppose 20% cancel, that's 12 appointments. Let's suppose we close 1 in 3, that's 4 sales a week, times 40 weeks in the year, that's 160 sales, ladies and gentlemen, in that year. Now, how many people do you know who fail to reach their goals in the financial planning business because they make 160 sales in a year? So, what does this guy from Toronto know? Let's cut it all in half. How many people do you know who fail to reach their goals in the life insurance business because they make 80 sales a year? Prospecting. John, I'm delighted to have you as a client, and I look forward to being of service to you over the many years that lie ahead. Now, John, as you know, I'm in a people business and thus rely solely upon my clients for new people to talk with. However, John, I want you to relax because, quite frankly, I don't expect that you'll know anyone who's in the market for life insurance because, obviously, you are not in the life insurance business yourself. However, I look for people, John, who possess 3 specific characteristics. Each one of them, by the way, is possessed by you. First of all, this individual must be a responsible business and or family person, who secondly has the ability to make a decision based upon fact, and who thirdly has excellent economic growth potential. Now, John, once again, while I don't expect that you'll know anyone who's directly in the market for my products or services, I do expect that you will associate with people who, like yourself, possess these same 3 basic fundamental characteristics. Now, John, who are your 3 best friends? Because I would like to meet them. Ladies and gentlemen, if we follow this simple prospecting technique, we will have more prospects than we know what to do with. In fact, an abundance of prospects, because everybody has a best friend. A few years ago, I was returning from a sales congress in Thunder Bay, Ontario with Ron Barbaro. Ron turned to me halfway through the flight and said, "Bruce, how many of your prospects earn more money than you do? Prospect up." Or, in the words of Marshall Wolper, always stay in over your head. Top-down marketing. In the personal marketplace, ladies and gentlemen, when we wish to approach an individual prospect, whom do we call? Do we call that prospect's accountant, lawyer, barber, or do we pick up the phone and do we call the prospect and ask for an interview? Similarly, in the corporate marketplace, whom do we call? Do we call the president of the organization the top decision maker, or do we settle just for a chance to get our foot in the corporation with an appointment with some other executive, the VP Finance, Personnel, Benefits, etc.? Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that in the corporate marketplace, if we prospect for, write to, and call upon the top decision maker, the president of most organizations, then we will have a unique opportunity to tell this individual who we are, what we do, and how we do it. This provides us with an excellent opportunity to build a unique chemistry between us and the top decision maker, which will prove invaluable to us when the final decisions are made. Just as in the personal life insurance marketplace, it is not the advisors, the barber, the mechanic, the lawyer, the accountant, or the mother-in-law that make the decision about whether that individual buys or doesn't buy. Yes, they can influence the decision, but in the final analysis, we know that we will have a chance to come to bat in the bottom of the ninth, even though there may be 2 out and none on, because we have involved that individual from the beginning of the process. Likewise, in the corporate marketplace, it is imperative that we also involve the top decision maker in the process, recognizing that he or she will delegate that subject to their executive team, and we must be prepared to work with their executive and associates involved in that project. However, when it returns to the table for the final decision, having involved the top decision maker in the process, the chances of us receiving a yes far outweigh the chances of us receiving a no, particularly when the top decision maker's head is going like this. Top-down marketing, ladies and gentlemen. Try it. You'll love it. But we must have the courage to call the chief, the top decision maker in the corporation. The pre-approach letter. Dear John, we haven't met. However, George Brown is a good client of mine. As a result, I would like to meet you. In anticipation that arrangements for a mutually convenient appointment can be made, I plan to telephone you in the near future. Yours sincerely. P.S. Thought the attached might be of interest. The telephone call. Hello, John, it's Bruce Etherington calling. Do you have a moment to talk on the phone? Well, yes, Bruce, I do. John, did you receive my letter? Yes, Bruce, I did. Now, fine, John, that's good. When do you think you and I could find an hour in the next 6 to 8 weeks to put our feet up and meet one another? Well, gosh, Bruce, next week I'm out of town, and the week after that I'm busy with a board meeting, and the week after that I have vacation, but the middle of next month starts to look relatively clear. Fine, John, would Wednesday the 15th at 7:30 for breakfast be convenient, or would Thursday the 16th at 12 noon suit you better? Well, Thursday at 12 noon looks relatively good for me, Bruce. Fine, John. Now, we're located at 522 University Avenue on the 12th floor. If you'd be good enough to meet with us in our offices, we'll have lunch catered and save your time at the same time. Implied consent, the salesperson's greatest tool. Use it or lose it. The deal before the deal. In my early years in the life insurance business, after finding a prospect, obtaining the facts, and preparing a solution, I would receive this type of feedback in many, many cases. Bruce, I really like your ideas. However, unfortunately for you, I'm going to have to implement these ideas with my cousin Harold, who has been in the life insurance business for 2.5 weeks. However, Bruce, you're a wonderful guy, and I really like your ideas, and I can assure you that the next time I'm in the market for your products or services, I will definitely give you a lot of consideration. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I was getting a lot of consideration, but very little business. And therefore, on the advice of my dad, who has been in the life insurance business for 40 years, I decided to do the deal before the deal. John, thank you for taking the time to visit me here in our offices. I want to thank you for taking the time to come. And I'd like to share with you how we operate, and it's all encompassed in something we refer to as the deal before the deal. I want to ask you a lot of questions today, John, about you and your business. And I'm going to do that based on 3 conditions. The first condition says very simply that any information you share with me will be kept by me in the strictest of confidence. Secondly, I'd like to have some time to think about the answers that you give me. Because if I don't feel that we can be of any creative assistance to you and your business, we'll tell you so. Because I don't want to waste your time or mine. On the other hand, if I feel that we do have something concrete to discuss, then we'll arrange for a second meeting, at which time the third condition will apply. Now, the third condition simply states that if you like our ideas, John, and you feel they're applicable to you and your particular situation, and you decide ultimately to implement those ideas, then we would expect that you would implement those ideas with us and not any other individual or firm in the life insurance business. Do you feel comfortable, John, with our deal before the deal? 98% of our prospects will say yes and respect you for laying your cards on the table. 2% of your prospects will not. And with those 2%, you gently take them by the arm and usher them to the elevator and say, ciao for now. Private corporations. These businesses represent a tremendous marketplace for 3 types of insurance product which we all know about, but which very few of us ever take the time to discuss with a new prospect. Share, shock, and debt insurance. Share insurance. Businesses are like buildings. Just as the World Trade Towers in New York City must go 20 stories down into the concrete of Manhattan Island before they're allowed to rise 110 above the New York harbor, businesses too require foundations. These foundations must be created for privately owned business so that at the death or disability of a shareholder, the values that shareholder has built in that business can be unlocked and the business can survive. How many of us are talking about share liquidity at death or disability with owners of privately owned corporations? When was the last time you asked an entrepreneurial prospect, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, how do you plan to unlock the value that you have built in your corporation the day after you become disabled? Or more importantly, how does your spouse intend to unlock it the day after you die? Mr. Businessman, you're earning $100,000 a year from this business. If we capitalize those earnings on a 10 times multiple, that would represent a $1 million asset, which conversely, if liquidated and put in a bank account, earning 10% interest, would produce an annual income of $100,000 a year. Mr. Businessman, aren't we really saying that your business is worth $1 million? How do you plan to withdraw your $1 million from this bank account the day you become disabled? More importantly, how does your widow plan to unlock it the day after you die? Shock insurance. There are very few privately owned corporations in the world which at the death or disability of a key person could not creatively use an injection of tax-free cash. Businesses are people, and yet all businesses, certainly most, consider insuring the obvious, the replaceable assets, the machinery, the inventory, the equipment. Very few businesses ever take the time to consider insuring the irreplaceable asset, their human resource element, their key people. Dun & Bradstreet, in an article in Dunn's Review a few years ago, bemoaned this fact. They said that the vast majority of men and women in the insurance business do not take the time to discuss shock insurance with corporate prospects. Ladies and gentlemen, is this an opportunity that we are overlooking in our practice? Debt insurance. Mrs. Business Owner, you owe the bank through your company $100,000. I'd like to talk with you about a special kind of insurance. It's called a fire your banker policy. You would like to fire your banker, wouldn't you, Mrs. Business Owner? You're currently paying 12% interest to the bank. By simply adding 0.5% to the cost of your loan, we will guarantee that when you walk out because of death or disability, my company will walk in and create $100,000 tax-free dollars, which your business can then take to the bank and fire your banker. Is there any reason, Mrs. Business Owner, why we shouldn't consider a fire your banker policy for you and your company at your death or disability? Best friends. I'm sure all of us in this room have a best friend, relative, neighbor, or acquaintance with whom we know we should have discussed the subject of personal life insurance, disability insurance, or financial planning, but whom we have not yet had the courage to call. Let me share with you an idea. Take a postcard from your hotel, from Disney World or the Epcot Center, and write a message on it to your best friend. Dear John, thought of you this morning at the annual meeting of the $1 Million Roundtable here in Orlando, and plan to telephone you next Wednesday afternoon upon my return. Yours sincerely. Hello, John. It's Bruce Etherington calling. Did you receive my postcard? Well, yes, Bruce, I did. What's it all about? Well, John, I sent you that postcard because I have two things to discuss with you. Well, what are they? Well, John, first of all, I want to apologize to you. Apologize? For what? Well, John, as you know, I've been in the life insurance business for 20 years, and you and I have been best friends for 10 years, and I simply wanted to apologize to you, John, for not calling you sooner. Oh, Bruce, let not your heart be troubled. Well, John, I appreciate that. However, quite frankly, I do have a question I'd like to ask you. John, would you have any objections to reviewing your life insurance program with me? Well, Bruce, I appreciate the fact you've called, but quite frankly, I'm not in the market. Well, John, I appreciate that. However, would you have any objections to reviewing your life insurance program with me? Well, Bruce, I recently reviewed my program with my agent, and I think I'm in pretty good shape. Well, John, I can appreciate that. However, would you have any objections to reviewing your existing program with me? Now, the majority of your best friends, neighbors, relatives, and acquaintances, if you continue to persist with that very simple question, will ultimately say, well, Bruce, look, I really think we'd be wasting your time and mine, but look, I have no objections to reviewing my program with you. And at that time, you simply say, fine, John, when should we waste an hour together? Tuesday morning at 7 or Wednesday at noon for lunch? Now, 90% of your best friends, relatives, neighbors, and acquaintances will give you that type of response. 10%, however, will not. Be prepared for the 1 in 10. Bruce, obviously I am not making myself clear. I have no desire, wish, interest, or anything else to review my life insurance program with you. It is none of your business. So please stop, cease, desist, and as a matter of fact, get lost on this subject. John, I can appreciate that. However, I'd like to have 5 minutes of your time with you in your office one day next week, and quite frankly, it's not to discuss your life insurance program, but more importantly, it's to tell you why I sent you that postcard and called you after so many years. Now, with you to that appointment, you take 2 items. The first is your appointment calendar, and the second is something we refer to as your release letter. John, thank you for the 5 minutes. I'd like you to read this letter. To whom it may concern, July 1st, 1986, Orlando, Florida. I, John Smith, have today refused to allow Bruce Etherington to review my life insurance, my disability insurance, and my overall financial portfolio program. And as a result, I hereby release Bruce from any present and or future responsibility to me and my family and my business when I die, if I become disabled, or if I retire. Signed, John Smith. After John reads that letter, he looks up at you with an almost incredulous look on his face, and you lean down over John's desk, and next to the release letter, you place your appointment calendar. And you say, now, John, my friend, I want your name on one of these 2 pieces of paper. Which one is it going to be? As Hugh Russell said, ladies and gentlemen, problem, problem. Who's got the problem? If we don't take the time or have the courage to pick up the phone and call our best friends, neighbors, relatives, or acquaintances and offer the solution of our magical discounted cash for pennies on the dollar, then it is we who have the problem. On the other hand, once we have had the courage to call and made that call, then regardless of which form our friend signs, be it the letter or the appointment calendar, the problem has been transferred. It is no longer our problem. An amazing thing happens when your best friend signs this release letter. He or she automatically qualifies for lifetime membership in the IOT, the International Order of Turkeys. This is a very select organization that has as its membership only individuals who have been rude or generally mistreated in general, a life insurance agent, or signed a release letter in particular from a member of the $1 Million Roundtable. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, MDRT research is extremely thorough, and the Roundtable has confirmed that there is an active chapter of the IOT in each and every one of the member nation countries represented at this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, this could pose a significant threat for us in our socializing. And the reason is a significant part of IOT's strategy is to always have present at a cocktail party where a life insurance agent in general or an MDRT member in particular is going to be in attendance, a representative of the IOT. Now, the proof of the pudding is this. When were you last at a cocktail party where you didn't meet at least one individual on the subject of insurance who could have qualified as a result of his or her actions for a lifetime membership in the IOT by being a real turkey? Cocktail parties. There are very few things in this world that I don't like, but at the top of the list are cocktail parties. Not MDRT or association cocktail parties, please, because there I'm among friends and peers and feel very comfortable. But at cocktail parties, everybody's cool. Everybody's smooth. Everybody's distant. It's murmur, 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 and mingle, mingle, mingle. And don't give your right name or say anything of any consequence. Well, recently, Karen and I had to attend a cocktail party, which I didn't want to go to, but knew we had to. And the reason was it was being given for a good friend of ours who was being transferred from Toronto. Well, I really didn't want to go, not because it was being given for our good friend, that was why I had to go, but because I knew that the president of the Canadian chapter of the IOT was going to be at this cocktail party. Because he had just signed one of my release letters. So I was very nervous about going. Karen said to me, however, the night before the cocktail party, look, Bruce, do what you normally do in this type of situation. Bring home your Answers to Turkey Objections book and study it. Now, this is a very significant resource manual which we have in our office because it deals with all PETs, potential encounters with turkeys. You know the typical situation. You're at a house party. The group's just nicely humming along, and you're standing by the bar, and all of a sudden this chap sidles up to you and says, just as the conversation lulls, "Say, Bruce, what is it that you do?" And you say, "Well, George, as a matter of fact, I'm in the life insurance and financial planning business. I sell life insurance." He says, "You what? You sell life insurance? Goodness gracious, don't bother calling on me." And you say, "Well, George, as a matter of fact, I wouldn't get all uptight about that because you see, one of the nice things about my profession is that I only call on successful people." Nevertheless, that afternoon, while getting ready for the cocktail party, I had a very large glass of wine in the shower. And another one on the way to the cocktail party. We arrived there very early, hoping to also make a relatively similar departure. We were standing next to the bar when all of a sudden, wham! Through the doors of the cocktail party came the president of the Canadian chapter of the IOT. And these individuals, these IOT representatives, particularly the executive members, are incredible animals. They're just like hound dogs in duck hunting season. They can come into a room blindfolded, do 3 sniffs, and pick out the insurance agent right away. Well, this guy came across the floor of the cocktail party, burst in our little group, looked at me and said, "Hey, Etherington, are you still in the life insurance business?" Well, before I could say a word, Karen stepped forward and she said, "Why, Andy, how very nice to see you." Yes, as a matter of fact, Bruce is still in the life insurance business, and naturally, this being his career, we've discussed whether he should continue to stay in it in this changing economic world several times at length. And he has decided that he's going to continue to stay in the life insurance business as long as I want to keep spending $100,000 a year. There was just a little wet spot on the ground where Andy stood. And so, ladies and gentlemen, just as my wife can be as positive about my career and chosen profession as you can appreciate, when someone asks me if I'm still in the life insurance business, I say with sales pride, "You bet I am."